Welcome to the deep dive. You've brought us a really interesting set of sources today, all focused on personal finance.
Yeah, it's a topic that, well, it touches pretty much everyone, doesn't it?
It really does. That constant worry about maybe not having enough or, spending money without thinking, maybe building up debt, it causes real stress for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Relationships feel the pressure. Work feels the pressure.
So our mission today, our deep dive, is to unpack a specific kind of, technique or recipe these sources lay out for managing money better.
Mm-hmm.
We want to pull out those key ideas that promise to help you, the listener, avoid those common money traps.
Mm-hmm.
Getting into debt, always feeling short, or just seeing your money disappear.
And what's really interesting here, I think, is that the source isn't just giving you a method like step one, step two. It's talking about a shift in mindset.
Okay.
Yeah, building actual financial intelligence. It tries to break down these big, scary challenges into steps you can actually take. The goal seems to be less stress, better well-being overall. So yeah, let's dig in.
All right. So the main source introduces this really simple but apparently powerful method.
Yeah.
It calls it the three account or STC formula. Let's break that down. STC.
Okay.
So first up is S. That stands for necessity.
Right, the essential.
Exactly. Your fixed, unavoidable monthly costs. Things like rent, gas, electricity, water. The source mentions milk for kids, school fees.
Basically, the things you absolutely can't skip.
Yeah, the source is really blunt about it. It says this is the account that, quote, if you didn't have, you would die for sure. Pretty stark.
Wow, yeah. That definitely highlights how essential this stuff is, and it stresses listing everything out as detailed as possible. That's crucial, I think.
Why is that?
Because it forces you to face your actual baseline cost of living. People often,
Yeah.
underestimate that. This makes you really see it.
Okay, makes sense. So that's S, necessities. Next is T, savings.
Right, the future fund.
This account is purely for saving, and the source recommends putting away at least 15% of your salary.
15%. That's
Yeah.
quite specific.
Yeah, though it does say, if 15% is just too much right now, aim for a minimum of 10%.
Okay. And the purpose.
The source puts it as, if you didn't have, then your future would be very difficult. So that's for those unexpected things life throws at you.
Like medical bills, car breaking down.
Exactly. Or even big plan things, like a wedding or maybe a down payment eventually. Now, here's where it gets interesting. A really practical tip. Automatic deduction.
Ah, pay yourself first.
Pretty much. The idea is you contact your bank, set up an automatic transfer. The moment your salary hits, boom, 10 or 15% goes straight into a separate savings ledger.
That definitely takes the willpower out of it. But what about dipping into it? How do you stop yourself from just pulling it out when you see something you want? That's the hard part for many.
True. And the source has a clever suggestion for that, too.
Oh, yeah.
It recommends choosing a 3-month term for these savings deposits, one that automatically renews.
A 3-month lock-in,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah. You can technically withdraw it early in a real emergency, apparently, maybe with a small penalty.
But it adds friction. It stops that impulse buy.
Exactly. It makes spontaneous spending much harder. And it specifically warns against longer terms, like 12 or 24 months, for this particular savings pot.
Why is that? Too restrictive.
Yeah, might feel too locked away,
Mm-hmm.
maybe discourage you from saving in the first place if it feels unreachable. 3 months seems like a sweet spot.
Interesting balance. Okay, so we have S for necessities, T for savings. What's C?
C is for party, or, entertainment. Let's call it discretionary spending.
Ah, the fun money.
Basically, yes. This is whatever's left over after you've allocated money to S&T.
Okay.
It's for all the non-essential stuff. Shopping, eating out, new shoes, books, coffees, bubble tea, whatever you enjoy.
So the rule is?
The absolute key rule. When you want to have fun, buy something non-essential, you only use money from this C account. Period.
Right. And the source claims this is where the financial intelligence really grows. How so?
It gives this example. Let's say you have 2 million dong in your C account at the start of the month. That's maybe, around 80, 90 US dollars.
Okay.
A reasonable amount for extras in some places.
Okay. Yeah.
Then you see a shirt you really like, and it costs 1.5 million dong.
Ooh, that's most of the C budget right there.
Exactly. You're immediately forced to think, okay, if I buy this, I only have 500,000 left for the next, 29 days.
Right. You have to weigh that decision. Is the shirt worth having very little left for anything else?
Precisely. That internal calculation, that questioning, that's what leads to wiser spending choices over time. It builds that muscle.
It's self-regulation without feeling totally deprived because you do have a fun fund. It's just finite.
Let's walk through the full example from the source. Say your salary is 7 million dong a month, maybe around 300 US dollars, just for context.
Okay.
You estimate your necessities, are about 4 million.
Rent, food, bills. Yeah, sounds plausible.
Then T, savings, at 15%, that's roughly 1 million dong.
Okay, so 4 million for S, 1 million for T.
That leaves 2 million dong for C, your party entertainment fund.
Got it. So that division makes it clear. You can't spend that 2 million on fun stuff without guilt.
Exactly. Because you know your essentials and your savings are already handled, it removes the anxiety from spending on yourself.
That clarity seems really powerful. Does it suggest how to manage that C money physically?
Yeah, it actually suggests keeping it separate, maybe in like the outermost part of your wallet.
So you can easily see how much is left.
Right. And it recommends actually counting it regularly, just to stay aware of your limit. Oh, and one more thing. If you get to the end of the month and you haven't spent all your C money,
Bonus, what do you do?
simple advice. Just move the leftover amount into your T account. Boost your savings.
Nice. So it encourages saving even within the fun budget.
Okay, so that's the STC framework. Seems pretty straightforward. But what if the numbers just don't add up?
What do you mean?
What if someone calculates their S, their absolute basic necessities, and their income? Well, it doesn't even cover that, let alone saving 15% or having anything left for C.
Yeah, that's a really tough and unfortunately common situation. What does the source say then?
The source uses this analogy. It's pretty direct.
Okay.
It says, imagine your car needs 100 liters of gas to get from A to B, but you only have 80 liters in the tank.
Right. You're not going to make it.
Exactly. And the source says the only solution is get more gasoline.
Ah, so applied to money.
If your income, your fuel, doesn't cover your essential journey, your S costs, you need more income. Simple as that, according to the source.
No magic formula to stretch the existing money further if it's fundamentally not enough for the basics?
Pretty much. The core solution offered is stark. Make more money.
Okay. How?
It outlines two main paths. One, try to negotiate a raise at your current job.
Which requires showing your value, right? Taking on more, upskilling.
Exactly. It's not just asking. And path two, find a new job that pays more.
Mm-hmm. Easier said than done sometimes, but often necessary.
The source is really strong on this. It warns against just accepting the situation, saying lack of money, it will kill you gradually. Quite dramatic.
Wow. Strong words.
Yeah. It pushes you to draw up a roadmap for boosting your income. Even if you stay put for a bit, you need a plan to earn more. It even mentions another source video called The Way to Get Rid of Poverty for Detailed Steps.
So the emphasis is on proactive steps to increase the inflow, not just managing the outflow and the inflow is too low.
Precisely. But this leads to another point. What about starting a business? A lot of people think about that when they feel stuck financially.
Right, the entrepreneurial road. Does the source encourage that?
It offers a very strong warning, actually.
Oh, like what?
It says, and I quote, running business is a playing field for wise people, not for innocent ones, not for dumb people.
Whoa, that's incredibly blunt. So not for everyone, clearly.
Not according to this source, no. It specifically cautions against starting a business if you're already struggling financially, if you lack bravery, or if you don't have real-life sort of street smarts about how things work.
So jumping into something you're not really prepared for, especially when you're already below your basic needs.
It's described as a tragedy.
Yeah.
It suggests watching another video called How to Stay Away from Running Out of Money Disease before even thinking about it.
It sounds like it views business as requiring a specific kind of savviness. It mentions the speaker's own success being due to mischief and wisdom.
Yeah, that mischief word is interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think that implies in this context? Not like doing bad things, surely.
I doubt it means anything illegal. It probably means more like shrewdness, being clever, maybe a bit unconventional, understanding how the market really works, not just how it looks on paper. That combined with wisdom or experience.
So not something to leap into out of desperation if you don't have that foundation.
That seems to be the strong message, yes. Focus on increasing income through employment first if you're starting from behind.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. Assuming you do have enough income to cover S, and you're applying the STC formula, how do you maximize savings without feeling like you're living, a really mean or deprived life?
Right, saving shouldn't feel like punishment. The source offers a few strategies beyond just the basic SDC structure.
What's the first one?
Well, the first, and it calls this compulsory, is just consistently using the SDC formula we talked about.
Ah, so the foundation itself helps.
Exactly. By making that 15% savings T automatic, and by using the C account for fun, it claims your financial intelligence will increase. You naturally get better at managing money and spotting savings opportunities over time. It's the bedrock.
Okay, so stick with the system. What else?
Strategy 2 is about rethinking where you live and how you commute. Specifically, it suggests moving to the suburbs if you're renting in a city center.
To save on rent, presumably.
Yeah. Significantly. It gives an example. Maybe a small place in the city center costs 3 million VND a month. Move out to a suburb like Thuduk or District 12.
Which are further out from the main hub in Ho Chi Minh City, for context.
Right. You might find a similar or even better place for 1 to 1.5 million. You could potentially have your rent.
That's a huge saving. But what about the commute? Isn't that a trade-off?
It addresses that. The key, it says, is finding a place on a good bus route.
Ah, public transport.
Yeah. A monthly bus pass can be way cheaper than running a motorbike, paying for petrol, maintenance. But there's another benefit it highlights.
What's that?
That commute time on the bus. It's framed as found time. Time to study something, to prepare for something, to revise for something.
So turn commuting time into learning or planning time.
Exactly. Don't just zone out. Use it productively. The advice is basically, if you're not coming from wealth, maybe don't demand the prime location and amenities right away. Prioritize practicality.
Makes sense. Okay, what's the next strategy? This one sounds potentially controversial.
Ah, yes. This is about tackling big-ticket items. The source suggests a mental shift. Try to remove the word buying from your vocabulary for expensive things and replace it with renting.
Renting instead of buying. How does that apply?
Well, take motorbikes. Very common in many places. Buying one might cost, say, 40-50 million VND, a significant chunk of money. The source compares that cost to taking 6,000 bus trips or commuting daily by bus for maybe 4 or 5 years.
Wow. Puts it in perspective.
It argues owning creates a burden, potential debt, maintenance costs, whereas using the bus or maybe ride sharing is like renting transportation when you need it.
Okay, I can see that for a motorbike. But surely the biggest example is houses.
Oh, absolutely. This is where the source is incredibly firm. It advises against buying a house if you don't actually have the money up front.
So against taking out a big mortgage.
Very much so. It states that for people struggling financially, owning a house through heavy debt is, quote, a hell of paying the debt.
It's a really strong statement against homeownership, which is often seen as the ultimate goal.
It really challenges that idea. It argues that carrying that kind of massive debt, like a mortgage, can cripple your life.
How so?
It makes you passive, stressful. It says you lose your sense of adventure, maybe even your potential for sublimation, for reaching higher goals.
Because you're tied down?
Yeah. It restricts your career choices. You might be afraid to leave a stable but unfulfilling job for a better opportunity because you need that guaranteed income to pay the mortgage.
You become risk averse.
Exactly. The source says it can make you feel like you are in prison.
Wow. Okay, so what's the alternative then, according to this renting mindset?
Well, it throws out a statistic. Let's say a house costs 2 billion VND. Same amount of money, it argues, could rent a really nice VIP place for maybe 7 million VND a month for over 20 years.
20 years of rent covered versus decades of debt payments.
Right. Without the stress, the interest payments, the maintenance costs, the property taxes, the argument is that renting frees you from that chain of debt.
Leading to what? More peace of mind.
Yes, a bright future, mental peace, and crucially, increased creativity. It's hard to think clearly, be innovative, or spot opportunities to earn more when your mind is constantly occupied by debt worries.
That makes intuitive sense. If you're stressed about paying the mortgage, you're probably not in the best headspace for growth.
Exactly. Now, the source does acknowledge this is personal.
It's not saying never buy.
No, it says you have the right to prefer buying, but it forces you to ask. If that choice leads to constant monthly stress about installments and interest, is it worth it? Maybe reconsider.
So it's a challenge to really weigh the true cost, not just the sticker price.
Precisely. And this renting mindset isn't just houses and motorbikes, it applies elsewhere. Rent a car when you need one, use ride-sharing like Grab or Uber, maybe even rent fancy clothes for a special occasion instead of buying.
It's about accessing the use of something, rather than necessarily owning it.
That's a great way to put it. Access over ownership, especially when ownership comes with heavy financial burden.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, what's the big picture takeaway for someone listening? We've covered the STC method, the need to increase income if necessary, and this renting versus buying mindset shift.
I think the overarching message is that financial peace isn't really about just having a huge pile of money. It's more about reducing that mental load, that stress.
Freeing up your mind.
Exactly. By managing your money wisely, using a system like STC, by tackling income issues head on, and maybe rethinking huge debt-fueled purchases, you create mental space.
Space for what?
For creativity, for thinking about growth, for contributing more, maybe just for enjoying life without that constant low-level financial anxiety humming in the background. When you're not always worried about debt, you have the clarity to be more productive and, well, happier.
So this deep dive suggests that maybe a truly rich life isn't measured only by possessions.
But perhaps more by financial freedom, flexibility, and the peace of mind that comes from being in control of your money, not the other way around.
That's a powerful idea. Okay, time for our final provocative thought for you, the listener.
Right.
We've talked about applying this renting mindset to physical assets like houses and cars. But what if?
Yeah.
What if you apply that same mindset more broadly to experiences, maybe even to opportunities? How might thinking in terms of accessing rather than owning change your approach to some of life's biggest decisions and challenges? Something to think about.